Hello friends, so we are simply left with the final 5 questions in the question paper in physics. Code that I'm still following is G3. Okay, right. So question number 131 is a simple kind of, you can say, unit conversion kind of a question. So by the time you have completed study for this exam, you might have done a lot of questions where this kind of conversion is required, especially when you talk about the topics like photoelectricity in the topic of you know mm, dual nature of matter and radiation. There you might have come across these kind of things, these kind of conversions of electron volt into, I mean joule into electron volt. So here they are saying that energy required to break one bond of DNA is 10 raised to minus 20 joule. Now why do you want to break a DNA one bond over here? It is immaterial. What we just require is this particular value, right? And simply writing this 10 raised to minus of 20, and we have to convert this into electron volt. Remember 1 joule is equal to 6, yeah, nearly 6, so I can say 6.24 multiplied by 10 to the power 18 electron volt. Remember, joule is always a bigger unit. You require 6.24 into 10 to the power 18 electron volt to make it as 1 joule, to make it equal to 1 joule. So it's just a matter of conversion over here. We are supposed to find out how much is this much joule over here. So that will be 6.24 into 10 to the power minus 20 minus 18. So that will be minus 2. So this will be going backward 2 times, and therefore my answer is option number second. Okay, so this is a fairly easy question, provided you know this kind of a conversion factor. So that requires good experience in solving questions. Like while you solve questions in physics, you will probably like to solve more questions rather than learning something over there. But yes, this particular paper is testing a lot of direct things that you learn from your experience in physics in a way. And teachers normally teach you this kind of conversion factor also in the classes. Let's quickly go on to the question number 132. Now this is from the topic of thermal properties of matter, and they are asking us to find out, they are saying that the quantities of heat required to raise the temperature of two solid copper spheres of radii R1 and R2, and they have given us how R1 can be related to R2. So there is a difference of only 1.5 times over here. So R1 is more than R2 by 1.5 times through 1 Kelvin are in the ratio of. Now we are trying to solve this, and we only know one kind of an equation. Only this equation is what I know. Q, the heat that you are providing, is equal to ms delta T. Fine. What about delta T here? In both the cases, you are actually transferring, I mean, you are increasing the temperature by 1 Kelvin. So this delta T is the same. What about this particular specific heat? These are made up of copper itself, two solid copper spheres. So S is a function of what kind of sphere you are using, so it's the same. So that means Q is only and only related to M in this particular case. Now how will I write M? I can write mass as density multiplied by volume. So density is again a constant, isn't it, because both of them are copper. Now volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube. So I can put a proportional sign over here, so that makes it much easier. Again, this is a constant, this is a constant, this is a constant. But density is a constant as long as I don't change my copper. So Q is proportional to R cube. Fine. So yes, you can say Q1 by Q2 is equal to, how much is R1? 1.5 R2 by R2. So this is 1.5 R2 divided by R2. R2 and R2 gets cancelled off. 1.5 whole cube, and you require it as a fraction. Let me put this as 3 by 2. So this will be 27 upon 8. So for this question, my answer will be option 4th. Okay. Again, easy question, but you should be able to manipulate in this way. You should be able to calculate the answer in this way. If you have done that, that means you have won in this particular question. You have cracked this question. Let's go to the next question now. See, this is a question from the topic of current electricity. So you might have seen the question initially that was in this paper. If I remember, it is 130th question, 130. Yeah, 3 questions before this. They asked you something about the temperature coefficient of resistance. and they were asking you in which of the following the temperature coefficient of resistance is negative, and we said it is insulators and semiconductors. So let's talk about that in slightly bit more detail to solve this. See, you know a very basic formula for resistivity, and that will be m divided by n e square tau, right? So that is m divided by n e square tau. Now this is relaxation time. You know electrons are colliding. So the time between two successive collision, you will have to say average time between two successive collision is tau. That is relaxation time. And n is the number density of electrons. Now the point is, let us suppose that I am increasing the temperature now. And this is a metal. Which metal? Copper. See, the point is that as far as your metals are concerned, each of them will have a slight variation as far as resistance and temperature is concerned. So the graph of every metal, you cannot expect it to be the same. There will be some or the other kind of variation, but copper is a standard thing that I think it is given in textbook, and this is what we learn also. So it's quite easy for us to get the value over here also. See, in a copper, that is, if you talk about a metal, if I increase my temperature, then the activity of the electron is increasing, the energy of electron is increasing, isn't it? Whatever happens with the electron will increase, just like you are having a thyroid disease, hyperthyroidism. So what happens? Heart rate will increase, cardiac output will increase, you will have shivering, and all these kind of things will be there. You will start having tremors, isn't it? So likewise, the electron is also hyperactive now. Now in that kind of a case, electron is very hyperactive, so the collision will increase. So the relaxation time is going to decrease. What about the number density? See, electrons are there, plenty of electrons are there in a metal like copper. So there is no point of, there is this n will not vary in very high level. So we don't have to consider the n factor over here, because if you increase the temperature, more and more electrons can come as the what? Valence electrons, and it can take part in current transfer. So only thing that will be feasible for us to consider is this particular tau here. As tau decreases, relaxation time decreases, the resistivity will increase. Resistivity will increase. Fine. Right. Now the point to remember is that it is not a straight line like this. This is not a straight line like this. The correct graph for this will be option number 2. So my answer is option number 2. Right? Now there can be metals where this particular graph will be similar to that particular metal. See, a metal can be there which has a graph which is more of a straight line, but as far as copper is concerned, it is extremely in this particular way. This is how the graph occurs. Okay, so yeah, you might know this particular resistivity relation. Rho2 is equal to rho1 into 1 plus alpha delta T. Now if you find what is alpha from here, you get alpha is equal to rho2 minus of rho1 upon rho1 delta T. See, this is the value here. Now this is called by the name of temperature coefficient of resistivity. Now as far as temperature coefficient of resistance or temperature coefficient, or if it is resistance, in place of rho2 you will write R2, rho1 you will write R1. So what is the point in that? Both are same, both are similar in all senses, both are similar. The change in resistance with temperature, change in resistivity with temperature is the same. Resistivity is actually equal to resistance itself. We are actually fixing a condition for saying that resistance is resistivity. So both are actually same. So the temperature coefficient just means that the fractional change in resistivity with change in temperature. For unit rise in temperature, how much resistivity is increasing. Now this is positive. This is positive in case of metals and certain alloys also. But it is negative in case of three things. What are the three things there? You can have semiconductors, insulators, and electrolytes. So that was the question that they had previously asked, and in this paper the question was 130th question, and there the answer was that, right? So it's a pretty theoretical question, and let's discuss these particular graphs now. In case of copper, and significantly in case of all metals, most of the metals, your graph will be more or less like this. It is not a straight line, but yes, there is some curve to this, and there are metals who will be having a graph like this also. So here I will prefer to make a straight line like this. This is how you get in case of alloys like nichrome. But yes, there are certain alloys like manganese and constantan where this particular graph of resistivity with temperature or resistance with temperature is almost like this. It's almost horizontal, right? There is some variation still, but yes, almost horizontal. And mind you, this is how I am marking here. X-axis shows the temperature and y-axis shows the resistivity or even the resistance are okay. Now, what about the semiconductor, insulator, and electrolyte? The temperature, coefficient of resistivity, the fractional change in resistance with unit change in temperature. If you are changing the temperature by a unit value, how much is the resistivity changing? That is negative. That means it is decreasing. So that graph will be somewhat like this. Fine. So this is all that I was planning to tell you about this. Please make a note of this. This is very important. And every physics teacher will teach you whenever he or she takes the classes for, yeah, in the session for resistance and resistivity variation with temperature. So it's a very important thing. And NEET has given good weightage for this year. They have given good weightage for the concept based questions and formula based substitutions, and even all concepts of the first chapter, that is units and dimensions, have become very much important. Everything that you learn in school, like be it your instruments that you learn over there, be it the significant figures that you learn over there, be it the error management that you learn over there, error and all those things which are associated with this, be it the dimensions in that, everything that you learn in that particular chapter has become important, right? And that chapter contains a lot of other things to remember also. You have a lot of things, isn't it? And yeah, order of magnitude and all those things, and then you can there are certain other things like take tables in NCERT which they where they give you a lot of values to remember. So if you are somebody who is going to prepare for the next year, I will recommend you to learn all these things. You have one whole year for learning all these things. You can take it one by one and start learning, so that I think in the near future they can give you questions like that. So memory based questions are also given good importance in this. And yeah, they have given adequate importance for non-calculation based questions. Now again, a very, see, they could have asked a lot of calculation based questions from the topic of transistors. You have three types of connections in transistors, and they can trick you with any of these kind of things that they have normally done in the previous years. But here they are simply asking you the basic concepts of transistor connection. We know that you have an emitter and you have a small base and you have a big collector, right? So the sizes will be base is the smallest, emitter and the collector is the largest. Now tell me how, which of the following is correct? Here base, emitter and collector should have the same size. This is wrong. Both emitter junction as well as the collector junction are forward biased. No, emitter base is forward biased, base collector is reverse biased. The base region must be very thin and lightly doped. This is correct. Okay, this is correct. I think, yeah, this is the correct answer for this question. So for this question, I'll be marking option number third as my correct answer. So memory based questions are also there. Concept based questions are also there. Whatever you learn, uh, where calculations are not expected, those kind of things are also given good importance in this particular exam. So please make a note of this particular fact that from the questions that they have asked in this year, and do make your attempt of learning more fruitful for the next year. Okay, so that is the importance of analysis of the paper. So this is what I recommend everyone who is watching this particular video. If you are an aspirant who is preparing for the next exam next year, please make a note of this. Revise everything that a teacher takes in the class for in a physics chapter, and all the concepts of physics are also much important in this regard, right? And again, see, Bohr model, they could have asked a lot of questions from the topic of atoms, and this time very commonly we say that Bohr model is only and only for hydrogen and hydrogen like species. What do you mean by this? What do I mean by saying that hydrogen and hydrogen like species? I mean to say that I have a single electron in the system. Now, how many of them have single electrons? See, deuterium atom is, it is a isotope of hydrogen. Protium, deuterium, and tritium, isn't it? Hydrogen atom as such is okay. This is okay. Singly ionized helium atom. Again, this is okay. See, hydrogen and hydrogen-like species simply means that hydrogen and the nearby elements. So yes, one proton is there. So this kind of species are called by the name of hydrogen and hydrogen-like species. But just see this neon, singly ionized neon atom. This is not at all related to hydrogen. It's somewhere away. So you can say that this is the only option that is out of the list, or you can say that it's an odd one out. So answer is option number third. Okay, so I hope you might have understood the meaning of saying hydrogen and hydrogen like species, something which has its size and its contents which are very similar to that of hydrogen. So this is called by the name of hydrogen and hydrogen-like species. So with that, we come to the end of the discussion of this particular paper. Now, a piece of advice for those who are actually preparing for the next exam. See, now during this particular time, you might have your each and every theory topics that are going on in your coaching classes and respective coaching institutes. By the end of this year, and yes, by next year May, which is the tentative date for the next exam, next NEET exam, they will start giving you quiz test series, isn't it? Yeah, you will be starting to get a lot of test series. Remember that while you write some consecutive test series, please stabilize your rank above 600. So in this paper, this was much easier, and there will be enormous number of students in India who will be having a score which is obviously more than 600, and then comes the competition between them. So my advice for you is to increase your marks that you gain in an exam to such a higher level that it is obviously more than 600 and stabilize it somewhere over there. Okay, so you need a stabilization of your marks when you write some consecutive 3 or 4 tests before the next NEET exam. So in that particular final test series that they conduct, you need to have a very good mark. And if you are stabilizing your marks, at a very high level, more than 600, more than 610, 30. So if your marks are coming around that particular way, in that particular range, then you can almost be assured that in the NEET exam, you will get a mark which is almost in that particular range that you used to get in the practice test series conducted by your institute. So this is some kind of an observation that I've made from my own preparation, from my own performance in the practices, from my friends' performance in practices. So I have understood this in great detail when I was preparing for the exam. So this is something that you are supposed to follow. Yeah, I thought of sharing this piece of advice with you. And yes, all the very best for your preparation. And if you are somebody who has written this exam this year, and all the very best for your selection to good institute of your dream and your choice. Thank you.